Hey, this is the Algebra Teacher Goes BI again, back for another week of another blog. This week, I'm going to keep it a little bit simpler than in the past. I've been learning a lot of DAX lately. I love the DAX formulas that do the calculations and the math 'cause I got that algebra background. But I recently ran into an issue that didn't appear right away with the client where we were working with some of her data, and we were working with her data and a date table, and everything was running swimmingly because I've used the calendar function in DAX to make a date table, and everything looked good. And then she went back and she refreshed her data for me, and after we did that, all of a sudden some of our visuals didn't match up anymore. And we realized it was because that when she refreshed her data, the date table did not match up with her new data because some of her new data points had the dates that were after her date table. So what we did was an easy fix. We went back into the date table and we added those extra dates in there so that the tables could talk to one another with their key columns. However, we realized that if we wanted to, if we're going to refresh the data on multiple levels throughout maybe this year, next year, forever, wherever we're doing it, we've got some problems. And so there is this other DAX function that I did not know about at the time called CALENDARAUTO that is going to help us fix that problem. So I can't share her data with you today. It's got some sensitive information in there. So I just decided to come up with my own little demo to help out, show the difference between calendar and CALENDARAUTO, and why probably from here on out, I never think I'm going to use the calendar function ever again. So let's hop over into the Power BI desktop and let me show you what I came up with for today. So what we've got here is I decided to come up with some cheesy data. Is I was thinking the other day, I've missed some chores a lot throughout my life, and if someone was keeping a record of those missed chores and putting them into a data table, what would that maybe look like? And the table I came up with for today, I'm making myself look way better than I am, is that I've only missed 4 chores so far in 2019 and 2020. These are the dates that they've happened on, and this is the chore that I have messed up on. I forgot to do it. So if to show, do I need a date table right now? No, I do not. But to show a quick functionality of how the date tables work and the difference between calendar and CALENDARAUTO, I'm going to make a date table at this time. So in DAX, we can make date tables by going into the data view and clicking on new table. And we could do this even in the report view, but I like to do it here to see our results immediately. And if I click on new table, I can come over into my formula bar and type in a very simple function. And so I'm going to call this my calendar. I'm going to even capitalize it, the calendar date table. So that way we know that we use the actual calendar function. And the way the calendar function works is we start typing in calendar. It's a really simple one. We're going to tab over. Calendar says, give me the start date. So if I got to give it a start date, I have to actually give it a date. So I'm going to use the actual date function. So I'm going to go down to date, tab over to date. So I know from my table that the earliest date that I missed a chore was on January 3rd, 2019. So I'm going to say I need it to start in 2019, month of January, day of the 3rd. That's my start date. My end date, I'm also going to put in a date function. So I'm going to say date, and it's going to say, well, what year do you want to be the last date? I'm going to say 2020. I want it to be the month of May, and I want it to be on the 1st. I'm going to close that out, hit enter, and voila, DAX makes a great date table here for me. So what can we do with this date table? Well, what we could do, and this is what I was doing with my client, not that she was missing chores or anything, and she had way more fact tables, not fact tables, she had more dimensional tables and more things going on than just this simple data model. But to illustrate this as quickly as possible, I could make it just a basic table visual. I could add in, let's go with just the date year. And that's the great thing in DAX. If you make using a date function, it's going to make a date hierarchy for you. And then I'm going to add in my missed chore. But what? It's not working, right? Because one of the things that we always have to remember is anytime that we make a table, we always have to make a relationship. They have to talk somehow. So we've talked about this in the past in some of my blogs. But we're going to make a quick relationship. We have to have, and for those of you who don't know about relationships, we can look more on that later. But if I go date to date, I now have my 2 columns that are going to talk to one another. And this is going to be a one-to-many relationship. I have one date in the calendar table, and I could have multiple of those dates in the missed chores because maybe I missed two chores on the same date. So that date would be listed twice, which I'm guessing has apparently happened here. So let's go back over here, and my visual has been up to date. So I see that, and make this a little bit bigger here for you. In 2019, fold clothes, take out the trash, wash the car, and give the son a bath. So everything is looking great. So let's see if this would have looked any differently using the calendar auto function. So I've got that one pulled up as well. So I'm just going to pull up my separate Power BI. So it's the exact same table here, but this time I'm going to put in a different date table using a different function. So I'm going to click on, I want a new table. So I'm going to go to Table Tools, New Table. And from here, I'm going to call this the calendar, I'll do it in capitals again, calendar auto date table. And what calendar auto is, and it's an even simpler formula to use than the other ones. I don't know, I just didn't know about it at this time when I was starting to learn DAX. But I just type in calendar auto, and look what it says. It says it returns a table with one column of dates calculated from the model automatically. So it's going to look through all of my tables, which I only have one, but if I had 5, 10, 15, 20, it's going to look for the earliest date in any of those tables and the most recent date. And when it finds that, when it finds the earliest date, it's going to make the start date of my table January 1st of that year. When it finds the most recent date, it's going to take that year and put December 31st of that year as the very last date. So I'll show you exactly how that works, because we just did that on our regular date table. We knew that January 3rd, 2019 was the earliest. So it's found that, and it's going to make January 1st the earliest because it does the beginning day of that year. And I had a value of, in Miss Chores, of March 1st, 2020. So in my date table, it's going to go to 2020 and go all the way to the end, December 31st, 2020. Okay, so let's see if that affects our visual at all. But before we make that mistake again, because we got to learn from our mistakes, right? We know that we need to make a relationship between these two tables so that they can talk. Without relationships, you can't talk between tables. Just like if you don't have a relationship with somebody or you have a bad relationship, I doubt you're doing a lot of talking. So I'm going to go from date to date. And again, this is going to be a one-to-many because there can only be one date, one unique date in your date table because there's only one January 1st, 2020. But for missed chores, that could show up twice because you maybe missed 2 separate or 3 or 4 or 5 chores on that day. Hopefully you didn't miss that many though. Hopefully I didn't miss that many. The wife would let me know for sure. So I'm going to make another table visual just like I did on the other one. And I'm going to put in again the year. So I'm going to put in year, and I'm going to put in the missed chores. And let's see what we've got. And I'm going to zoom in, and it's the exact same view as the other one. 2019, we've got 3. 2020, we have 1 occurrence. So just to prove that those are the same, I'm going to come back over to the calendar function. Calendar function, 2019, 3, and 2020, the same. So far, there's no difference between calendar and calendar auto function. But when we get back after a quick pause, I'm going to update this data and show you what would have happened with the difference between using calendar and calendar auto. All right, and we're back. So what I did in the background, so you didn't have to watch me do it, I refreshed the data. I went back into my Excel file. I added some new dates to the chores missed because maybe the person in charge of me found some ones I forgot to put down in earlier years, and maybe I've missed some extra chores since we last talked. So here's what the new data table is going to look like. So what has happened is I have added some extra data to this. So October 2nd, 2018, that wasn't part of the original data set. This August 7th of 2016 was one in the past that someone forgot to write down for me, so we've updated it. And then I have a new one here, April 5th of 2020 as well. So these 3 were not part of the original data set. So in the calendar function, this is where we're going to run into our issue. We're going to have, some things that don't show up anymore because what has happened is we have some dates that are now out of the range of what we started. Because remember, when I did the calendar auto function, my earliest date was January 3rd of 2019. And the latest date, so we went from January 3rd, 2019 through May 1st of 2020. So this October 2nd, 2018, that's not in my date range. The August 7th of 2016, not in there either. And then my April 5th of 2020, that one's still okay. So that one should be good to go. But my first two are not going to be in there because they were before January 3rd of 2019. So let's take a look at how our visual was updated. So I'm going to come over here to my visual, and this is how the visual has been updated. All right, so what has happened is those two values that were before my original starting date of the new change diaper and pressure wash the driveway, they're showing up as a missed chore because they exist, but they don't have a year associated with them because they can't talk to my date table. So I could go in and fix this. Again, wouldn't be that hard of a fix. I could go into my date table formula, and now my earliest date, instead of being January 3rd of 2019, my earliest date is August 7th of 2016. So I could change this to 2016. I could go to here, make this August, make this the 7th. My last date, I'm still okay because May 1st of 2020 is still the last date in this data set that it would go to. I could click check. It's going to modify my date table. I can go back to report, and it has fixed it now. Now they've put the full date in here because I'd have to go back and change the visual to change it just to years, but we see that we actually have a date value for every single missed chore. Did that take long to do and fix? Not at all. However, with the calendar auto function, nothing. I don't have to change a single thing because what happened is when we did a refresh on the data, the calendar auto function, the formula went, okay, I'm going to look through all of the tables because the data has been refreshed, and I'm going to look if the dates have changed. Is there a new early date? Is there a new ending date? And it found that there was a 2016 date in our new data set as the earliest, so it's now defaulted to January 1st, 2016 as the earliest. So again, this is just a quick update thing to remind yourself of when you're doing calendar versus calendar auto. I like to use calendar auto now because I don't want to go back and, if I refresh the data 3 years from now and try to figure out, did the dates change? Calendar auto is going to do that for me. So I hope this is helpful, a little trick in the future, and you can use it. Again, I'm always here to try to shine light on things that are going to be able to help you out with explaining it in the easiest way possible. If you feel like these videos are helping you and the blog's helping you, comment below, subscribe, and like.